you for joining me for Storytime with Tanya as we explore today's story called The Bishop's Secret. Jamie Rodriguez stood at the edge of the Montego Bay pier, the Caribbean sun scorching his back. His cheap boots were already scuffed from the uneven roads of downtown, his threadbare duffel bag hanging limp over his shoulder. A Dominican by birth and a wanderer by fate, Jamie had long since traded dreams for survival, until the rumor of a long-lost treasure brought him to Jamaica. It was an old tale. Spanish gold hidden centuries ago by a rogue conquistador who had defied his orders and buried his hoard somewhere inland. Most dismissed this as a myth, but for Jamie, he had nothing to lose. It was the only chance to change his life. The story reached him through whispers in backroom bars in Santo Domingo, scribbled clues in the margins of a priest's forgotten journal. One name surfaced again and again. Father Bernard Mendez, the Catholic Bishop of Jamaica. One name surfaced again and again. Father Bernard Mendez, the Catholic Bishop of Jamaica. If the tale were true, the knowledge of the treasure's location had been passed down from bishop to bishop for generations. The cathedral in Montego Bay was quiet when Jamie arrived, its stone walls rising in defiance of the humid air. He expected to be thrown out. Instead, he found Father Bernard in a garden behind the chapel, feeding birds with gentle hands. "You're the Dominican, aren't you?" the bishop asked without turning. "I am," Jamie replied. "Jamie Rodriguez." Father Bernard finally turned, his dark eyes sharp despite the years. "I've been waiting." The bishop's study was a world of forgotten relics and yellowed texts. As Jamie explained his research, Father Bernard listened in silence. Father Bernard listened in silence. When Jamie finished, Bernard stood, walked to a locked cabinet, and removed a small leather-bound journal. "I never believed it," Bernard said, "but I've read this 100 times. Maybe I was wrong." The pages were written in Spanish and Latin, filled with cryptic verses and faded sketches. One stood out, a map. It showed a waterfall, unmistakably Dunn's River Falls, with a strange mark near the top, hidden behind a cascade. "Something is in there," the bishop said, "and if I'm to answer for the generations before me, then I must see it with my own eyes." Jamie was stunned. "You're coming with me?" Bernard smiled. The Lord worked in mysterious ways. They set off the next morning, boarding a battered minibus toward Ocho Rios. Along the way, Jamie felt the weight of the bishop's presence, not just as a man of faith, but as someone with a quiet strength. Bernard recited prayers under his breath, but his eyes never stopped scanning the passing trees. What they didn't know was that El Gringo was already in Jamaica. A ruthless treasure hunter with no loyalty but to gold. El Gringo had tortured a man in Havana to get Jamie's name. A blonde-haired killer with a devil's grin. He was part mercenary, part myth, and he wanted that treasure for himself. By the time Jamie and Bernard reached Dunn's River Falls, The air was thick with the scent of moss and the sound of crashing water. Tourists were everywhere, but the bishop pointed to an old path on the side, overgrown and barely visible. "This way," he said. They climbed for over an hour, slipping on wet stone, hacked by vines. Finally, behind a curtain of falling water, they found it. An alcove carved in the rock. Inside, a chest sealed with iron bands and the cross of Santiago. Jamie's heart pounded. He reached for the chest and a gunshot cracked through the air. "Step away, amigos," came a voice behind them. They turned to find El Gringo, his pistol aimed at Jamie's head, a machete strapped to his side, and a cruel grin on his face. "I've been watching you since Montego Bay. Gracias for the hard work." Jamie moved to shield the bishop, but Bernard stepped forward. "You don't want to do this," Bernard said calmly. And Gringo sneered. "Old man, I've killed better priests than you. You'll get nothing but damnation from this treasure." "I'll take my chances," El Gringo said, and fired. The shot missed. Bernard had thrown himself into Jamie, pushing him aside. Jamie hit the rock hard, his vision spinning. But Bernard had been hit. Rage flared inside Jamie. He grabbed the loose stone and hurled it. It struck El Gringo in the temple. The thief stumbled backward, straight into the waterfall's edge. One slip, one cry, and he was gone, vanished into the pounding waters below. The treasure was real. Gold coins, old religious relics, a jeweled chalice. But as Jamie knelt beside the bleeding bishop, he realized it meant nothing. "I'm sorry," Jamie whispered. Bernard gripped his hand. "Do not waste it. Use it for good." 2 years later, in a quiet corner of Santo Domingo, an orphanage bore a new plaque. "Fundación San Bernardo, for the children of the sea." Inside, children laughed and played under the watchful gaze of a mural of a man in worn boots and a bishop in white robes standing before a waterfall. And beneath it, written in Spanish, "Treasure is not gold. It is the legacy we leave behind." Thank you for joining me for Storytime with Tanya for The Bishop's Secret. Stay tuned for next week's episode. I appreciate your support.